study in here. Okay, so the mom went into the hospital in February 2019, was there for 4 weeks, and came home needing somewhat round-the-clock care. She wasn't able to, go to the bathroom properly on her own and things like that. So suddenly we became more round-the-clock caretakers and, provided every single meal she ate and, of course, did her laundry and changed her bedding and tried to tidy up her room and made sure she was okay and bathed her and clipped her toenails and did all kinds of crazy stuff. All while she was horrible to us and acted very put out if we were trying to heal the gout in her wrist or, whenever she would be in pain or back pain, this and that. So it was really hard. And then she just got worse and worse. And I wasn't taking it because I had recently learned about narcissistic abuse because I had a boss at work who went off on me in a very terrifying, just unhinged way. And then I ended up twisting my ankle a week after that, coincidentally. So it was summertime, and so I ended up being off of work for a full month. And the manager never knew if I, was freaked out and just was going to leave because of him. But at any rate, it wasn't. It was just weird timing. And yes, I was processing all of it. And yes, I ended up doing a crazy dive into narcissistic study on the internet with Scott Bassett, Understanding Narcissists. Amazing. And there was another gal too. She was so good. It was called, I think, Escape from Narcissism or something. But she's taken her videos down, but she was so good. She just spoke from a really natural, calm way. Now, all of this is on the heels of reading a book by Samuel, what is his name? Butler, The Way of All Flesh. It was written like 1901. It could have even been written before that, but he purposely published it posthumously because he knew it was a pretty revolutionary point of view. And it was loosely disguised as a, what do you call it? Fiction, but it really was nonfiction. And he was loosely describing his family and how this one guy just ended up going off the rails because he wanted to be a certain way and he wanted to please his parents. His dad was a pastor and everything, and his mom was, a boring pastor's wife. And he was really interested in music, and he was a decent person and everything, but the father wanted him to be a pastor and demonized the son's desire to be in music. Anyway, he found that every time he tried to please his parents, they weren't happy. And his mother would always sabotage him and say, "Oh, confide in me," and then she would go back and tell the father everything. Anyway, this led to just a series of mishaps and a series of confusion on behalf of the son, who ended up being uncharacteristic and ended up getting into jail. And he was so ill that he never really had to serve particular jail time, but he was in the infirmary in jail. And that led him, it was like a near-death experience, and it led him to this realization that my parents do not love me. My parents do not want me happy. They don't want me to succeed as much as they pretend they do. I will never survive in this life unless I never see them again. And it was this epiphany he had, and he stuck to it. And they show how he lives his life away from his family, and he starts to thrive. And it was very controversial at the time because there was different characters in there that knew of the family and said, "Oh, your family is," there was such a word. It wasn't onerous. It was just odious. That was it. And most families are. And only a few in every generation are okay in a family. Anyway, it was so revolutionary, and it was just so ordinary, and it was amazing. And it really wakes you up to the fact, for me, for narcissism, that it all begins in the family. And it's all this karmic wheel that people can't get off. And they get hurt, and then they grow up to hurt their own children, and it just goes on, or hurt their spouses, or hurt their friends. And they can never really feel good about themselves, and so they never are able to face what that vulnerability is, and so then they just pose as a stronger, more powerful person. And anytime you have more power in any relationship, starting with children, over your children, that's just a no-brainer dynamic where you have more power. You have the power to warp, to dwarf, to discourage, to not value, and then it screws that child up. And then they grow up and either are screwed up by it and develop drug and alcohol problems, or psychological problems, or insecurity problems, or they grow up and become a terrible, cruel parent themselves the moment they can. So it's a very dark pattern, and narcissism is about discovering that pattern and calling it out for what it is, and it simultaneously releases you from the serious insecurity that you kind of grow up with your whole life, thinking it was you because you didn't fit in and you didn't do what was expected of you, and all this endless avenues of comparisons and competitive mindsets that unless you're a competitive type, you're never going to emerge strongly out of. And and so narcissism gives you that realization that it wasn't you, it was damaged people trying to damage you so they could feel better. And it's a super depressing realization, and yet it's a very freeing one. So I think that's the difficulty of narcissistic healing, is you really are kind of going against the grain of how we've all been raised to think that family is there to love and care for you, and you even hope that your family is the exception, and you say, well, no, but they do love me and they mean well. I'm a disappointment. I'm not, someone that they feel pleased by, or they feel like I'm not living up to my potential, and on and on and on. But the fact of the matter is that we all have our own unique destiny, whether we're in the same family or not, and it is not up to us to live the way our family wants us to live or thinks we should live. We have to follow our own, what did that woman call it? Irrational search. Stella Adler, she talks about an irrational search that each creative soul feels compelled to live. And it's irrational because you can't explain it to other people, but it's the search that you're on. It's like this journey, this odyssey, and you have to be on it. And I think certain people are born with a sensitivity, like an artist, or a writer, or an observer, or a poet, or something, and you feel the sorrows of the world, you feel your own experience of being a misfit, but then you also learn that it's part of the world too, the society, and it's a rotten society, as Krishnamurti would say, and Schopenhauer, and Dostoevsky, and Orwell, and Salinger, and just George Eliot, any great author I've ever read, or thinker, or philosopher, they have all echoed the same message, is that Rousseau, society is misguided. Society brings out our worst qualities. The true individual maintains their integrity, maintains their elegance, their grace, their decency, their compassion. That is very hard to do in this world and feel confident. So, and obviously that's what happens with narcissistic abusers, is that they can't withstand that process where you have to come from somewhere small and humbled and grow into your own strength and confidence and abilities that have nothing to do with society's approval or disapproval. You have to kind of rock it on your own with, a few close friends or supporters, and that's it. But you cannot count on it from the general society or your general family. They're never really going to get it because they just want you to conform, and conform or be cast out, as Neil Peart wrote in Rush and Subdivision, I think. So many songs that Rush saying that we're all about that message. So good. The lighting is going. Okay, so anyway, I really want to write about this, but there's so much that I feel overwhelmed, so I really want to talk about it, and I really want to help people the way I was helped. And there's doctors that are great, but I also think the ordinary voices need to be heard as well, just so I can share my story. A lot of people in the comments section, and Dr. Ramani and Les Carter and stuff, and Understanding Narcissists, you just see how prevalent it is and how upsetting it is, and how I'm 54, how old you can be before you wake up to it, because it's never discussed that perhaps our families might be the hardest thing for us to overcome, survive and overcome. And that's why we're here, I'm convinced, is to be our true selves, to be authentic, to learn the lessons from previous lifetimes about loving ourselves and being kind to others and trying to contribute to the world something that will make it better. So, okay, the light is gone. This has been lovely, and I'll be speaking more. Thank you for listening.